Well, how do you do? Welcome to lesson 8.3. Here's your objective. I will be able to write equations for functions and graph those equations. All right, so let's jump right in. We're writing equations first. That's the first half of the lesson, and then we're going to graph those equations. All right, so I have an input-output chart. I have my x, and I have my y. But the question is, how do I get to my y? All right, so I don't know how to get to my y. So what do I do to my x? I've got to find a pattern that each one of these does. So let's see, if I start at 1, how do I get to 9? I could add 8, or I can multiply by 9. So I have two options right here. It could be x plus 8 or x times 9. One of those might be the options. Let's see. If I move over to 2, let's try both those options. 2 plus 8 does not equal 18, so that one does not work. Let's try our x times 9. Let's take our x. 2 times 9, does it equal 18? Yes. So that equation works for two of them. Let's plug in 3. Does 3 times 9 equal 27? It does. 4 times 9 is 36, and 5 times 9 is 45. They all work out. So my equation is x times 9 equals y. Or I could simply just say 9x equals y. I have my equation. Let's check and see if I'm right. And there it is, but I actually wrote y equals 9x. Either way is the same. 9x equals y is the same exact thing. All right, so I found my equation. Let's try another one. All right, now I have to go from 1 to 16, 2 to 32. So, I don't know what my y is going to be. All right, I have an x on this side. What can I do to my x to get my y? All right, how do I go from 1 to 16? Maybe I could add 15, or I could multiply by 2. Those are my only two options I see right now. I'm going to this time multiply by 16. All right, I don't know if I said it before. Multiply by 16 or add 15. Because I can see right away if I add 15 that works, but if I add 15 here that doesn't. So I'm thinking I have to multiply by 16. So I'm going to have 16x will equal my y. So 1, now I plug in my 1, so now I would get 16 times 1. Does that equal 16? It does. Now, for my next number, 16 times 2. Does 16 times 2 equal 32? You betcha. So, my equation for this function is 16x equals y. Because whenever I plug in an x, I'll get the y that is my output. Let's check with 5. Is 5 times 16 equal to 80? Well, 5 times 10 equals 50, and 6 times 5 equals 30. 50 plus 30 is equal to 80. So that works out. All right, not only do we have to find equations, when we get equations, we might have to graph them during this lesson. So I have the equation y equals 2x. Now I already have the graph up here, so you can take a look at it, pause the video if you need to. But I'm going to show you how we graph this point. All right, we're only working in quadrant 1 right now. So we have positives in the x's, positives in the y. This is only quadrant 1. So to get this graph, I basically have to plug in numbers. So I'm going to set up a couple of numbers right here. All right, I'm going to start with my x's. I'm going to use 1, 2, and 3 for my x. Okay, so when I plug in a 1 into this equation, 2 times 1 equals 2. My y equals 2. When I plug in a 2 for my x, 2 times 2 equals 4, so my y equals 4. When I plug in this 3 to my x, 2 times 3 equals 6, my y will equal 6. So I can keep plugging in numbers if I want to. I don't really want to right now, especially because I'll run out of room on this chart, which I already have. But now I have coordinates to plug in. So my first coordinate was 1, 2. So I go 1, 2, and there it is. My next coordinate was 2, 4. 2, 4. There we go. And my last coordinate was 3, 6, 3, and then 6 would be right here. And they already connected the dots for me. Now, how did I start at 0, 0? Well, let's see. If I plug in 0 for my x, sorry, I should probably write over here. If I plug in 0 for my x, what's 0 times 2? Well, it's equal to 0. So my first coordinates are actually 0, 0. And there it is right there. And you can connect your dots. And there we have our graph, our linear equation. All right. Now let's graph this equation. Y equals x plus 1. Before I graph anything, I have to make some coordinates. So I'm going to always actually start with 0. Then I'm going to go to 1, 2, maybe even 3 if I can fit it on the graph. So all my x's are done. Now I just have to plug in my x to get my y's. So let's start with 0. 0 plus 1 equals 1. So my y would be 1. So I'm going to plug that in. So 0, 1, my first coordinate is right there. I don't know if you can see it too well, but there it is. All right, let's plug in a 1 now. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Good job. So my next coordinate is 1, 2. Third coordinate. Let's plug in a 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3. So my y is 3. X is 2, y is 3. You could already see the pattern starting to take shape here, the line. And the last coordinate I'm going to use is 3. 3 plus 1 equals 4. So I have a 3 and a 4. And if I were to continue, I plug in 4 for my x, I would get 5y. Plug in 6 or 5 for my x, I would get 6y. And would go on and on and on, following the equation. All right, we have one more to try together here. Let's graph this equation. Y equals 2x minus 1. So let's set up some points. 0 for x, 1 for x, 2 for x, 3 for x. Now I think I might have made a mistake by putting a 0 first this time, because we might have to fall out of quadrant 1. You'll see what I mean. So if I plug in 0 for x, because there's my x, 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. I didn't want to work with negatives today, so I did that by accident. So now my first coordinate, my x is 0, my y is negative 1. So it's a little bit off the chart down here. Let's plug in 1 now. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. So my next point to plot is 1x, 1y. So here we go, 1, 1. Let's plug in a 2 now. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 1 equals 3. So I have 2 for my x, 3 for my y. 2x, 3y. And my last point was 3 for x. 2 times 3 equals 6. 6 minus 1 equals 5. So my last coordinates is 3, 5. 3, 5. As you can see, I'm going up 2 for my y's and moving 1 to the right for my x's. As you can see, I'm at 0x, 1x, 2x, 3x, and then next will be 4x. And for my y's, I'm going up 2, -1 to 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5. This might be a little confusing. You might have to rewatch a little bit of this. But if you don't get it, we'll explain it, of course, in class. But just try your best. Always give a little bit of an effort here. And let's see what you guys have to do for work for me. All right, you have 2 things. All right, write an equation for this function table. So here's your input-outputs, your x's and your y's. When you plug in your x, you get 0 for your y. When you plug in your x, have 1, you'll get 4. All right? So how do you go from 0 to 0, 1 to 4, 2 to 8, 3 to 12, 4 to 16? It looks like you're multiplying by the same number. Hopefully that 0 doesn't confuse you. After that, you have to do a little extra work for me and draw a graph. Shouldn't be too hard. You don't have to draw the 4 quads. You don't have to draw quad 1. So you could just go like this. Give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw something like that. And graph this function, x plus 3. So you'll make your own coordinates. You'll plug in 0 first. And I'll even do your first plot point. You plug in 0. 0 plus 3 equals 3, so your y would be 3. So your first point would be 0x, 3y. All right? You might have to make your chart a little bigger to get a couple more coordinates in there, but I think you could handle it. Good luck, and I'll see you when I see you.